Today we start a new um, uh, section of our program, which is entirely devoted to due diligence, and it will occupy us today and on Monday as well. But it's a very important part of investment that is very often overlooked. But we'll see why it is very important, namely by watching our short video. So let's begin with the video. Here it is, I think. Okay. I have to open. Now I have to confirm the sound is fine. Okay. And let's see.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something that, let's be honest, every single one of us dreads. Watching one of your favorite, most beloved stocks just start to tank. We're going to break down how you handle that stress, not with your gut, but with a clear, methodical plan. So just picture it. You open up your portfolio, and there it is. Your favorite stock, the one you had so much faith in, is down a whopping 20%. Instantly, that little voice in the back of your head is probably screaming, "Sell, get out now!" It's that moment of pure panic. But is slamming that button the right move? Or is it a knee-jerk reaction you're going to regret later? And that's where this whole idea comes into play. The process we're about to walk through, due diligence, well, it's not just some box-ticking exercise. When you're in that moment of panic, it's your last line of defense against making a purely emotional and, potentially reckless decision. This really gets to the heart of the matter, what we're calling the panic button problem. It's that classic internal struggle, right? Your gut reaction screaming at you to stop the bleeding versus the calm, logical process that smart investing actually demands. Okay, so before you even think about making a move, you have to put on your detective hat. You've got to answer one critical question. Is this just a temporary storm for the company? Some market jitters or a predictable dip? Or are you actually seeing cracks in the foundation? A deep, fundamental problem that isn't going to fix itself? Absolutely everything you do next hinges on getting this right. So how do you find that answer? Well, it's about making a conscious shift. It's time to move from that emotional passenger seat into the analytical driver's seat. We're going to trade those gut reactions for a clear, fact-based roadmap. And that whole process is called due diligence. Now look, I know that term sounds like a ton of boring homework, right? But it's not. Think of it as your most powerful tool, a repeatable, data-driven investigation that's designed to give you clarity right when you need it the most. It's how you turn all that uncertainty into an informed decision. So to make this whole thing less intimidating, we're going to break it down into a super simple 3-phase playbook. Think of this as your personal guide to turning that market chaos into clarity. Okay, phase 1 is all about popping the hood and looking inside the company. First, the fundamentals, the raw numbers. Are revenues still looking healthy, or is there a real problem brewing in the financials? Then we look at the leadership, because a company is only as good as the people at the helm. A surprise CEO exit, that's a huge red flag. Next, we check their competitive advantage. Are rivals starting to eat their lunch? Are they losing their tech edge? And finally, valuation. Is this falling price just a panic, or is the market finally waking up to the stock's real intrinsic value? And answering that valuation question isn't a guessing game. It really is about doing the math. This means you've got to dig into the hard data, look at things through different models. The whole point is simple. Figure out if the current stock price is being driven by market panic or if it reflects the company's actual financial reality. All right, for phase 2, we need to zoom out, because even a fantastic company can get dragged down by forces it can't control. First, ask yourself, is this a company problem or is it a sector problem? If everyone in their industry is sinking, that tells a very different story. Then you look at the wider economy. Are recession fears or rising interest rates making life hard for everybody? You also have to see how they stack up against their direct competitors. Are they falling behind? And finally, one of my favorites, follow the money. Are the insiders, the execs who know the company best, are they buying more stock or are they quietly selling? Their actions can speak volumes. And that brings us to the final, and honestly, maybe the most important phase, bringing it all back to you. Because a stock might be great on paper, but that doesn't mean it's a great stock for you. Does it still fit with your personal goals, your diversification plan? Then you have to think about opportunity costs. Could this money be working harder for you somewhere else? And don't forget taxes. Sometimes a strategic sale can actually help you offset other gains. And finally, the toughest one. You've got to look in the mirror and be brutally honest. Are you just holding on to avoid admitting you made a mistake? That is a dangerous and very expensive bias.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like a ton of work. And, it used to be. But today we have an incredibly powerful tool in our corner, artificial intelligence, which can basically act as your own personal analyst assistant.
The real key here is to use these tools as a partner, not as a replacement for your own brain. AI platforms can do the heavy lifting, standardize the analysis, while generative AI can summarize dense reports in seconds, helping you pressure test your own ideas. But remember, the AI is your analyst, not your boss. It's still your human judgment that has to connect all the dots and make that final call. Which brings us to the end goal of this entire process. It's not about getting stuck in analysis paralysis, it's about building up the conviction you need to make a confident final call. Because here's the thing, sitting on the fence is not a strategy. After you've done all the work, you have to land on a clear, binary choice. You either hold on with a brand new, data-backed reason for your conviction, or you sell, knowing you made the decision for all the right reasons. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to de-deliberate. And that really just leaves us with this one last thought. The next time you see a sea of red in your portfolio, just remember this. The best investors, they don't react. They pause. They assess the facts methodically, and only then do they act with clarity and with confidence.
Okay, so I'm done with this, with our short video. It's time now for the. And actually, I made a big mistake here because we were supposed to start to begin with the first topic, which was financial analysis. But that's fine because we have just come to the last one, which gave us an overview of what's the role of due diligence, what we need to do, and so on. And then we can go back to the first session, which would be on financial due diligence. So no problem, we'll have the introduction first. But just before we start with the financial analysis, let's just remember that when should we use or when should we run a due diligence process? And of course, there are three moments when we need to run a reasonably thorough due diligence. The first one is, of course, to make sure that we don't get at any rotten apples when we are creating a portfolio. Before we add any stock to our portfolio, we need to make sure that we don't add there any rotten apples. So that's first step. Second step is, like mentioned during the video, is when we face a sudden change of circumstances, when a stock explodes or when a stock crashes. So when we need to react with some knowledge rather than having a gut reaction, and so that's another important moment when we need to carry out a due diligence. In the third moment, which we often forgot very much frequently, is when we decide to rebalance or to change our strategy or our portfolio. Then we need to do that. And also we need, when we do assessments, we need to make sure that the mistakes we made could have been prevented by a better due diligence. So in a way, let's remember this. Due diligence is something that we learn all the time, and we keep learning through our life. Of course, we can practice due diligence, which is a very good and way to improve our performance. But it's something that we'll keep learning all the time. We never finish learning about due diligence.